So hello everyone, and welcome to this vlog. I am making it because I am just having the most mind-blowing time tuning into a new Starlight course. If you don't know me, I'm Katie from Starlight, and we do all sorts of transformational courses, workshops and ceremonies, and travel. And the course that's been called is a course in abundance alchemy, and it's really been like this calling from the universe to bring abundance consciousness back to the feminine and back to our feminine nature, and to shift our abundance consciousness as part of ascension so that we can be more abundant in our paths. And in tuning in to this course, which I am doing currently in Japan, in between teaching and doing one-to-ones out here, I am just getting the most incredible downloads that are blowing my mind and changing me at a really cool level, and I think that they're really important to share, so I'm going to try and share as many of them as I can. But the one I want to share today is my guides gave me this downloaded message that said we're moving from the age of fuel to the age of flow. And that's quite a powerful statement anyway, but then they went into this amazing detail about what this means, and they said you've got to understand this, that this is happening on an inner level inside you. You have to understand that this is happening to your consciousness, because as outside, so inside. Obviously we understand that we're coming to the end of the age of fuel, and we're actually coming into crisis because of coming to the end of the age of fuel. But they gave me so many layers to this that are just so special. For example, they showed me that these two things are really represented in Pisces and Aquarius. So we are moving from the Piscean age into the Aquarian age. And they showed me that the fish in the Pisces symbol that we all know so well is really a symbol of fuel. It is something that is a life force, but because it is a physical thing, it can, you know, if something else eats fish, it will give a certain amount of fuel for a certain amount of time, but then it's not gonna continue to give you fuel, to give you energy. Whereas if you look at the Aquarian symbol of the water carrier, energy is flowing from the water carrier's bucket, or from the water carrier's arms, from an endless source, from an infinite source. So we're moving from the concept of fuel to the concept of infinite supply, of flow. And this is actually at the center of both. Or, you know, this symbolism is at the center, in the most simple form, of what it is to move from the Piscean age to the Aquarian age. So this concept is really, really at the center of ascension and what ascension means. And what they said is that you have to understand that what fuel is. To understand flow, you first have to understand what fuel is. And they said that fuel is an energy that can manifest a reality independently, but against the flow. So, or actually what they said is very often against the flow. And so if you think of it, we use fuel to light up our houses and our lives, even though the flow is saying that it's nighttime and it should be dark. So we use fuel to manifest things, to create realities that basically are outside of the flow. That is how we use fuel. And what they said is that we are doing this on an inner level, and I'm going to come on to that in a minute. And one of the things they said about fuel consciousness is that it is deeply, deeply connected to the idea of sacrifice. And in fact, the Piscean fish really represents the age of Christ, because Jesus' symbol was a fish. And if you think about it, at the center of that big biblical story is that Christ sacrificed himself for our sins. And so there is this idea with fuel that in order to manifest something, in order to create something, there must be a sacrifice. A fish must be eaten for another fish to survive. Something must be used up in order for this energy to be created, whether it is oil. If we start to bring this into an inner level, it is the idea that when we that in order to be abundant, we must sacrifice our time. In order that everything we do must have a sacrifice to it. And so there's that sacrificial energy running through the age of fuel, that we must give up something in order to create something else, that we must burn up or use up something in order to create something else. And this runs so deeply through our creational consciousness at the moment, through our manifesting consciousness and realities at the moment. But the exciting thing is, and this is really where it's coming into the deep understanding of what ascension is we are moving from that consciousness into Aquarian consciousness, which is infinite supply, which is flow, which is allowing the infinity, miraculous, amazing, beautiful, magical, miracle-filled energy of the universe to co-create with us, to flow with us, allowing our infinite potential to flow through us and create our realities. And what my guide said is yes, this is happening massively in the outside world, but really in terms of ascension, we always have to bring it inwards. So what does moving from fuel to flow mean on an inner world? Because when we change it on the inside, it changes on the outside, as outside so inside, and as inside so outside. And so basically what it means is we need to stop creating from limited consciousness. We need to stop creating from fuel consciousness. And here's what they showed me, is they showed me that, it is fuel that allows you to create duality, because it allows you to create against the flow. And on an inner level, fuel is our emotions that allow us to manifest against the flow. So they are the low vibrational emotions like fear, like anger, fear being the main one, but they are things that give us energy to go outside of our own love, to go outside of our own infinite flowing beings. And if you think about it, fuel will just take a moment to think about how fuel exists in your life. Like, if you're in a job you don't want to be in, then you are using a fuel like a fear to keep you out of the flow, to keep you out of that sense of honesty that will ultimately bring you back into the flow. Basically what they said, so sorry, the internet connection. So if you think about this for just a moment, if you are in a state of fuel manifesting, then you are basically using emotions to take you away from the flow, to create a duality, to what my guide showed me is lie. So you are using your emotions to drive a reality that is out of alignment with your soul path, that is out of alignment with the will of your heart and the will of your love, and the direction that the whole of the universe wants you to go in. For example, staying in a job that is making you unhappy, and yet your fear that you won't be able to get another job, or your fear that you won't have any money is acting as a fuel to keep you there, even though it's causing you to go against the grain. It is acting as a fuel. And here's the amazing thing about this concept is that fuel it will always tire you out. It will always create a sacrifice in some way, because you're having to burn up some kind of it's costing you energy in some way to manifest this reality. It's against a grain or against a resistance. And so here's the really amazing thing, is that part of how we can ascend is by starting to notice when we're manifesting from fuel and choosing to come back to flow. And it's so easy to come back to flow because all we have to do is allow ourselves to be honest. And when we allow ourselves to be honest and recognize it as fuel, we can slowly release ourselves from that fuel, those fuel manifestations, and come back to the heart and come back to love. And when we come back to the heart and come back to love, we come into Aquarian consciousness and we start to flow. And flow is about ease. It is about infinite supply. It is about surrender. And it is about really allowing the universe to provide for us, to support us, to carry us. And it's about being fuelless or fearless. And so it's a really incredible state to be in. And I've been exploring, since my guides gave me this concept, I've been exploring about, kind of how do we do this? How do we ascend this within ourselves? And I would say that the biggest thing is actually surrender. Because when we surrender, we give over of ourselves. So we give up the part of us that is trying to have this individual, independent, manifested reality, which is basically our ego. And we surrender to the flow. And how this has helped me the most, especially because it's quite a time of big change and transformation in my path, but I think for everybody, because we're at the start of this new path cycle, is that I've stopped looking at things through the fuel perspective. So I've stopped responding to things in a state of worry or stress or panic, and instead surrendered to the reality as a flow. So understanding that if something's making me unhappy, I'm flowing out of it, and if something's making me happy, I'm flowing into it, and really feeling this sense of movement all the time in my life. And if I notice myself going into fuel, then instead I give up that fuel to the greater flow and to this Aquarian consciousness, which is, like I said, the easiest thing to do is to surrender. And the best description I can give of it is it's a bit like walking into the sea. And when you walk into the sea and you're like really tense and it's cold and your belly's cold and your other parts are cold and the waves are hitting you and you're in total resistance, that bit of walking into the sea is like the fuel bit where your fuel's trying to convince you to go back on the beach. It's too cold, and there's this resistance happening, and then there's this moment where you're like, okay, I'm just gonna jump in, and I'm just gonna dive under the water. And that moment when you come under the water is moving into Aquarian consciousness, is moving into flow consciousness. And so the reason I'm giving that description is it's like the more you can do that with every experience, that sensation of just fully surrendering, of fully becoming present, of fully becoming whole. So much of this is about becoming whole, the becoming into honesty, so that the fuel can't burn a reality, a duality reality. It's like if you can become whole, come into integrity, and just surrender into the flow, and to surrender to the flow that is either moving you out of it or moving you deeper into it, depending on if it is a joyful experience or a non-joyful experience, and basically transcend your own fuel inside yourself. Then you start to flow with unlimited consciousness, and suddenly your potential starts to be part of that wholeness, and that unlimited consciousness starts to become part of that wholeness. And just as when you jump into the sea, you become one with the sea, and everything becomes calm and kind of beautiful and mystical and magical. This is what we have to do in this time of transition, is that jump into that sea within our own consciousness, which can only be described as surrender. So it's about surrendering and shifting out of fuel consciousness. Of course, if you've got a lot of fuel consciousness, there's probably a lot of deep subconscious healing work to do. And I am going to be hosting some live deeply healing transmissions with some of the energies I've been working with here with the groups in Japan that are really, really powerful and transformational for the subconscious and the fuel consciousness. And I've been guided to do that over the eclipse window, and it's free, so you just have to join the group. I will put a link to it with this video. And so, yeah, it helps you transcend. It will help you get through some of the fuel consciousness that's feeling stuck or feeling like it's really got a grip on parts of your reality. But as a general rule, I think the best intention I can offer you through this concept is, wholeness, honesty, surrender, and also just allowing yourself to expand and think of everything as being in flow, as being a river or an energy that is moving you from one reality to another, moving you all the time, and allowing yourself to surrender into those movements without any judgment, rather than into resistance. It's coming into that deep state of trust that is required for us to be able to manifest the infinite, unlimited, flowing consciousness of the Aquarian age. And I hope this video has helped you, and please, if you have questions, post them underneath it, ask about it. It's quite a concept to swallow, and like I said, I'm still playing with it, but I really, really wanted to share it because it's just changing the way I kind of view everything and the way I'm doing everything, and it's giving me a tangible, actionable way into ascension at the moment. So that's why I'm sharing it. So much love and blessings and light and miracles and beauty and magic and flow, 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 flow to you all.